Welcome to the Wall podcast, brought to you by Wall EdTech, where your host, Jared and Kari Wall's passion for technology and learning come together to bring you up-to-date information on what's going on in and out of the classroom. From the latest apps and best practices to current trends, this podcast is Wall to Wall EdTech.
Hi, and welcome back to Wall podcast. I'm your host, Kari, and I'm here with Jared.
Hello.
And today we're on episode 15, and we're still talking about using Google tools in the classroom, and today's focus is going to be on Google Forms.
Lots of fun with forms.
Yeah, we've got lots to say about that.
Absolutely. So let's start with our show notes, news and notes. First of all, we're still looking for comments or suggestions on tools that you use when you know you're not going to be in class for the day, whether you know you're going to be absent or you get sick at the last minute or you have professional development, you're not going to be in class. What technology tools do you use to facilitate learning in your class when you're not there? We do have a Flipgrid set up. There's a link in the show notes, but we've also added a link to our website. So if you go to walledtech.com, look on the home page, you see a big Flipgrid logo. Click the link and leave us your feedback. We do have 2 so far, but we'd like to hear more. You can also leave us some feedback by sending us an email at jared@walledtech.com or Kari@walledtech.com, but we look forward to hearing from you. It's teachers like you that drive what we do.
Yes, and also, don't forget our contest. We have the Christmas Goodie Box giveaway.
Do I hear Christmas music?
Do you?
Is it that time of year? Thanksgiving is over. Let the Christmas music begin.
All right, so we want feedback. So for the Christmas Goodie Box giveaway, to enter for a chance to win, you must visit our podcast page on iTunes and leave us a review of our podcast. And we want you to be honest and tell us what you think, because just like our students, we need to know what's working and if we need to tweak things in order to make the show as effective as possible for you, our listeners. So we've got a good little box of goodies to give away.
Absolutely. I'm excited about that one. Next in news, we have a blog post that we recently added to our blog, and we did tweet it out, and it's on our website if you want to give that a read. I was responding to an article in the Baton Rouge paper, which is called The Advocate, and the person who writes for the about education for The Advocate wrote an article about Louisiana's EdTech gap, meaning
it's very interesting.
Very interesting. And it basically, in that article, he talks about how we have to do something to improve educational technology, access to technology for students in Louisiana schools. And I gave Wall EdTech's opinion on that, which is there aren't enough schools that focus on technology, and there are certainly not enough educators who are using technology in the classroom. From our perspective, some districts have technology, but it's not utilized. It was eye-opening in that article that there are some districts who have 0 educational technology specialists on staff to even teach a teacher how to use technology. And we know, at being in schools, that the biggest obstacle is not actually having a computer or students with computers. It's having a teacher who's willing to take the risk to use the technology and let the students use the technology in their learning.
And to give the teacher the support to be able to feel comfortable to use it and to teach them how to use it.
And so that's where Wall EdTech comes in. And my reply was, Wall EdTech would love to help out with the gap, what they called a pretty good gap.
Pretty good.
Yes, that's a
Can you
nice way of saying
pretty good.
Pretty good gap. It's a terrible gap. We're willing to help. And the way we can help is if you are a teacher and you are just not comfortable using technology in the classroom and you need some help, please, we're going to add a form to our website. There's a Google form. We're going to embed it on the website. We'll put a link in the show notes. Request help. Send us a message. Say, hey, here's the tool I need to use, but I don't know how to integrate it. Or could you suggest some tools? Of course, that's what our website is all about. But not just suggest them, but I need some help learning how to do this. We'd be happy to chat with you. We'll talk with you on the phone. We can email back and forth, whatever you need. We're here to help you. We also offer to help districts who have no idea how to get started with with technology, as far as what do we need, what needs to be in place, what's the best tools. We have opinions on that. We may not always be right, but we do have opinions about the cheapest way to get technology tools in students' hands that work.
And we've went to trainings about this, and, using technology, whether you like it or not, it's no longer an option. This is something that needs to be done because our students are looking to us to show them the correct ways to use technology and effective ways to use technology. And, at home, they may not get that. They probably don't get that. And it could be how to use social media. Well, that's not using technology effectively and to be productive with what they're using their technology for.
And just to make sure, we are talking about students who have to enter a workforce that's going to require that they have skills like Microsoft Office applications, being able to use word processors to analyze data in spreadsheets, to communicate effectively using technology.
To even just look at a website and determine whether or not it's a legitimate website.
Right.
Is it giving you factual information or is it opinions? Just
can they
simple
collaborate
things.
with others using technology to put out a project or a presentation? All of these skills our students need. It is shameful that there are schools who do not have access to technology or don't have people who can make that happen in the classroom. So we're here to help with that. That's what that blog post is about. Give it a read, leave it a comment, share it with your friends, and get the conversation rolling about Louisiana's EdTech gap.
Right, the pretty good gap. And speaking of willing to help, one of the resources is our website, and changes are happening. Jared has been on Thanksgiving break, and he has really done some updates to the website. So check it out. He's been updating information and resources just to help you be able to access things a little bit better. And we're in the process of reorganizing our how-to video tutorials. So that's,
We have some screencasts on how to use some of the tools like Sheets and Slides and Google Docs and Drive. So we're going to reorganize those. So if you're looking for something specific, you can find it there. We're also going to add more videos so that it's a little more user-friendly and more tips out there for you. Also, we've updated the tools section. So if you're like an ELA teacher, if you click on the ELA section, there are tools that we recommend that we're using, and we tell you if they're free or if they cost money. And then we're going to add some sample templates as well. So when we talk about how we're using Google Sheets or Forms, we're going to add some templates that you can pull and look at and analyze to see how we're using those in the classroom. So all of that is happening on the Wall EdTech website.
You can always tell when we're on break because we get way more done with things, and it gives us an opportunity to update just to better help our fellow teachers out.
Absolutely.
All right.
So now we're moving on to our technology tools and trends section. Technology trends, one of those that we've written down here is infographics. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, infographics are just like a quick, I want to say like a poster, but it's just a little quick pick, I guess you could say, to catch a student's attention. And, visuals are everywhere. So I've seen this used many different ways, but you can give students like a teaser graphic for upcoming units or lessons or projects, activities, things like that that's coming up. Of course, we've talked about Canva. Canva is the quickest, easiest way to make some really professional looking graphics. And then teachers, I've seen where they've been creating newsletters for students. I really like that. It's like a classroom newsletter, just kind of, I've seen where someone does it like for the week and about the tools that they've used and the, technology tools and the assignments. And it just looks really cool. I haven't done this. I would like to do this, trying to find the time to do it. But that was one thing. And then, based on what I had learned and what I had seen, I started doing a infographic to go with our show notes for our podcast. So it kind of gives you a quick snapshot of what the podcast is about. And then viewers can see what the show's about and listen if they're curious, and they can click different links on there also that they can takes them to the website so that they can learn more about what we're talking about.
If you haven't seen Twitter in a while, Twitter's become a whole new thing with these graphics, and Wall EdTech has upped its Twitter game lately. We've learned how to create these graphics and add, give some eye-catching information to catch someone's attention so they might actually read your tweet.
Our students are no different. They like to see, if you got that eye-catching graphic to go with it, then they're a little bit more curious and they're going to look at it a little bit more.
And then finally, technology tools. Just real quick, when we're going to do episodes on these, an upcoming episode, Google Drawing allows you, if you're talking about graphics, it's a way to add and embed drawing activities into student assignments. You can actually create a template with a Google Drawing and put it in your Google Doc before you assign it in Google Classroom or share that document. And you can let students drag and drop. That's a test skill that a lot of them need, where they can move the items around, put them in the right order. They can label things. So
the drawing is embedded directly into the Google Doc.
Right. And so the student double clicks on that drawing and it opens. And now they can take anything you've already got in that drawing, move it around, label it, add text, draw on it. And we're going to go in depth into how we use that later, but just know lots of uses for Google Drawing. And we have an episode coming up on that. And on that same episode, we're going to discuss how we're using Google Keep, which is a tool every teacher should be using for planning, organizing, and teaching students to be organized and how to take notes. So hopefully, if you want to learn more about those tools, you'll check out our next episode when we get that one rolled out.
All right. I feel like we've been talking a lot about everything, but so about our podcast. So today is focusing on Google Forms. So Jared, what is a Google Form?
Google Forms, of course, is a question or survey type response system that can collect information from anyone. So if you've ever used a survey to collect information online, or you want to create a questionnaire or even a quiz, Google Forms is the tool for you. It allows you to create those questions, share them with anyone using a link online, and then you can create multiple choice questions. They have linear scale, long answer, short answer, check boxes, drop downs, anything you can pretty much think of, you can collect information. Now, the good thing for teachers is not only can you collect information, you can actually give quizzes with Google Forms as well. It has that functionality. So Google Forms is the tool we're talking about today. And we have a lot of fantastic ways that we are using Google Forms in the classroom that we want to share with you as well.
One of my favorite things about Google Forms is that when you ask a question, depending on what the answer is, it can take you to a different section. So you can divide it up. It's not one big long running form. You can break it up into sections.
Absolutely.
Like that. Also, you can put images into your questions or at the top for your header, just to there's that visual representation that we've been talking about. Before we even start talking about how we're using it, I think it's important that when you use a Google form, you can collect email addresses, or it can be completed completely anonymously.
Right.
You can also share it so only people within your domain have access to it. So this is especially good when we're talking about our students and not letting anyone else have access to that form.
And the beautiful thing about that is if you're in a Google for Education school system and your students have those Google emails set up already, then when they log in, it captures that information. You know who's taken your quiz, or you know who's filled out the assessment. You can limit it to one response if you want to. And then when those students, I just learned this, those students can come back, and when they try to take it again, it won't let them.
Right.
But they can review their responses later because it's connected to that account. So that'll be important when we talk about the quiz functionality here in a little bit.
Yes. So we're talking about how you're getting all this information and things that you ask students and all the different ways you can, but the form generates responses. So you can click on, at the top it has the questions, so that's your actual form, and then it has a spot for responses. So the responses can be viewed, it gives them the visual representation, so it has charts and it has different graphics, so you can see what your student answered, and then there's that, or it can be collected through a Google Sheet, which is one of our previous episodes when we were talking about Google Forms and Sheets connection that way.
Takes things to another level.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's talk about how we're using Google Forms in the classroom. And the first thing on our list is quizzes. So I'll talk about this real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
As an English teacher, I have my students reading text. I have them learning vocabulary words as we go through our units. And so I will use these as a formative assessment tool. I give my summative assessments in a tool called Illuminate, which deserves its own episode. But for formative assessment, something quick that I can look at the results for and use to tailor the teaching and learning in my classroom on the fly, I use Google Forms because it lets me collect information on what students have learned and whether or not they've mastered certain standards or learned the vocabulary. I share that with my students through Google Classroom. I link it to my Google Slides agenda for the day. They click it, it takes them right to the form. And as they take the test, I get the results immediately on the responses section of the tool. And that responses section will show me, because I set up the form, I add all my questions in, and then when you set it, if you go to the settings in that form, you can change the setting from a regular form to a quiz. And that's important for teachers to hear. So you set it up just like you do a regular Google form with your questions, multiple choice, even if you want short answer. But you have to go into the settings and choose quiz. And when you set it to a quiz, now I can go back to those same questions. And at the bottom of each question, if you click on it to edit the question, you can go into what's called the answer key at the bottom. And when you click answer key, then it lets you select the correct answer and how many points you want that question to be worth. So that's the important part about quizzes. It's basically a Google form, but you got to select that quiz functionality, add the points, select the correct answers, then it will score itself. It'll also have settings where you can tell the students they can see their score immediately when they're done with correct answers, or you can withhold that information and they can come back and see that score later after you've had a chance to give feedback on the short answer or whatever, score those things that didn't automatically score themselves. So that's one of the ways I'm using
anything that will grade itself is fantastic.
Absolutely. Now, I will say this as well. You connect that quiz to a Google Sheet, and then it gives you every student, because mine are logging in with their Google account. So it's connected to their email. They only get one attempt because that's what I set it to. But then I can see every answer that was chosen for every question in that sheet. And then I can run a quick formula at the bottom. What percentage of my class got each question right? Now I can just quickly on the fly say, okay, 20% of us got this one right. We need to go refocus on what the problem is here.
You, the teacher, a weight of reflection as well.
Absolutely.
Nice. Okay.
And then my students, I can sort it by the most chosen option. So if half the class missed it, and of that half that missed it, most of them chose A instead of the right answer, we can go analyze that as a class and say, what is it about A that made you want to choose this one over the correct answer? We can have those kind of discussions, and I can pull that stuff up on the fly and use it as a way to formatively assess my class, go back, reinforce things we're trying to learn, and then move on with the next thing rather than waiting a week to find out kids didn't really understand this. I'm finding that stuff out immediately in my class using Google Forms.
And just like our students, the quicker we're able to get feedback, the better for everybody.
Absolutely.
Okay. One of the ways that I use Google Forms is student accountability. I've created a form that allows me to do like a quick reflection of the student. And this could be their behavior, how attentive they were for the day. And so I use this, I connect it with the form, and I'm able to sort per student. So if I'm called into a conference or someone says, hey, what's the student doing in class? Well, I can give you a picture over however many days or months or whatever. But I ask things on there, and this is just for me, that I walk around with my iPad, and it gives me a chance to reflect on that student. So I have questions on there like, was the student on task? Did they perform today's skill correctly? Were they helping someone? Do I feel that they were putting effort into their work? Was the student having to be redirected during class? And I use this as a positive thing as well. And then I can also put, if I have a student who has accommodations, then if the student had accommodations, what did I have to do for them? So it's just a student accountability, but it's a way for me to keep track of what's really going on in class. So when I have an IEP meeting, I have this picture over the course of time that's specifically for this one student. And I do it, like I said, as a positive thing. I do it as, I want to say like a negative thing, like the student was not themselves today, and they were kind of out of the box. But then also for those IEPs or the conferences and things like that. So I use it as a way to help keep them on track, and so that I can recall, because I can kind of talk about a picture, but if I have that in black and white on my screen and say, oh, on this day, and maybe there's a trend, maybe something's happening during that particular class or that particular time of the day, and just to kind of spot out trends. Maybe, once you get in that IEP, the parent tells you, oh, they started medication this day. And you're like, okay, well, that kind of explains things. So, as teachers, this is stuff we deal with.
I love it. And it's quick and easy. You just click some buttons, type in some notes, and hit submit, and it's being collected.
Right.
I'm using it for student accountability. My students use it to track test corrections. I'll have them go back, and any question they missed, they have to go in, tell me what answer they chose and why, and then if they figured out what they missed, and it keeps them up to date on what standards they have mastered and have not mastered. So use it in that regard. I'm also using it as a student goal setting and reflection form. So before each unit, I have my students go in and complete a Google form, and I have the goals set up. I have each standard set up for the unit that we're going to cover. It tells them what that standard is, and then they self-assess. They tell me on a linear scale. I use that linear scale function where they can say on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate yourself on your ability to complete this standard? They do that at the beginning of the unit. Then they set a goal. They tell me in there, all right, here's what I'm going to do to make sure that I'm progressing on this standard. This is my goal for the unit. Then at the end of the unit, they come back after they've taken their unit post-test, and they analyze those standards, how they performed, did they master it? And then they fill out that same thing. And then now the questions are not, how do you think you at the beginning of the unit, but how do you think you did on these standards? Can you tell me, or on a 1 to 5, how well did you master that standard? And then they reflect and they tell me, all right, here was my goal, and let me reflect on how well I did at accomplishing that goal. So it just gives them an opportunity to, just like teachers do, to think about things after the fact, reflect, and see how they could be better at what they're doing as well.
That's an awesome way to hold them accountable and to see what are you going to do to meet that goal. I also do it with test recording. Students have to fill out a form every time they take a practice test for leading up to certification exams. They have to record their score, which software program they were in, and stuff like that. And so when they ask me, hey, could I take a test? Well, pull up your scores. Let's see what you've recorded, because let's see if you're ready, because they know what they have to do to meet the certification requirements. You talking about reflection and holding students accountable. I'm a business teacher, so every week we do a weekly business report, and I always do it on Friday. And this is a form that I've created that's based on about 6 to 8 questions. It's designed to take them like around 5 minutes. I don't want it to take long, but and it just kind of reflects on the week in class. And so students have to give an explanation to their answer, to their response. They have to talk about their struggles for the week, their successes. Sometimes I have them, rate also, like, how did you do on your exam this week? What are you going to do to improve this score? Whatever. And I kind of always end it with a fun little hashtag to kind of sum up their week. And I always do this on a Friday. So most of the time it's, weekend ready or something like that. But
always fun to create hashtags.
They love to do that. And they put some stuff on there that I have to go look up. I'm like, this is weird. But, kids have their own perspective. So.
And I see it here, using it for a parent contact log as well. So you can create that form, and then every time you have to contact a parent, you have all of your information preset. So you can type in a parent name, and then you can check off some boxes of things you discussed with that parent that you have preset. Give yourself a comment box so you can add some specific comments about what you discussed. Hit submit, and now you've collected information on when you've contacted parents as well.
Well, and I know, like, our school system, you have to input that same exact information into, like, our grading software program. So when you have it up on there, I have it where the form generates the Google Sheet that goes with it. So all I have to do is copy and paste that right in there and click submit. So it's an easy way to do that. Another way that we use Google Forms is in our school-wide is that it's an infraction tracker. And so
anytime a student violates a school rule like dress code or they're tardy, a teacher just goes onto a Google form. We all share that Google form. The student names are already in there. All the infractions are set up. And then a teacher can just, with a couple of clicks, submit that infraction. And then on the back end, there's a Google Sheet connected, and the administrators see how many infractions a student's received, and then they get consequences for those. You can even create that for your own classroom if your school doesn't have one of those.
Right.
And maybe you want to set up a certain set of rules and tell a student, after this many infractions in my class, you got a phone call home, going to assign you to detention. You could set that up for yourself easily and then just record those and keep up with them over the course of time as well. So a bunch of fantastic ways that we have discussed today to use Google Forms in your classroom. If you're not using it, start using it. It saves you time collecting data. It gives your students a chance to really think about and reflect on what they're doing, and for you to collect those thoughts as students think through them.
And one thing is, I said earlier that I just walk around the classroom with my iPad. With Google Forms, they have the apps and all these things. So it's not something that you have to walk around or wait till after class and use a computer for. You can do this from your phone or anything. So it's a quick way to immediately track whatever it is you're looking at or looking for, and then come back to it later, because that response was immediately recorded, in that Google form or on a Google Sheet, however you have it set up to do. So it's so quick, and it's, like I said, you can walk down the hallway with your phone in your hand.
Absolutely.
And get it that way.
Well, I've had a great time talking about Google Forms
today. We do a lot of stuff with Google Forms.
We do, and we hope you heard something that will inspire you to try it out in your classroom today. Even if you don't have a Google for Education accounts at your school, you can have your own personal account, set up a Google form, and then just have your students log in with their own email addresses, and that way you can say you can only take this quiz one time, but you can use it as a tool for yourself, even if you don't have those accounts set up. But we hope we inspired something in you that you heard in this episode that you could use forms for. And maybe if you do, you'll send us an email or leave us some feedback on our ideas, Flipgrid, and let us know what you're doing with the tools we're talking about. We love to hear from teachers who were inspired by something on our website or hearing our podcast. So please leave us some feedback. Don't forget, we do have our contest running. Go to iTunes, rate us, and leave us some honest feedback on a review in iTunes, and you'll be entered to win that holiday goodie box. Until next time, when we talk about using Google Drawings and Google Keep in the classroom, this is Jared, and I'm here with Kari, and we'll see you next time on Wall to Wall Podcast.
Thank you for listening to Wall to Wall Podcast. You can get all of our podcasts by subscribing to Wall to Wall Podcast on iTunes. For more resources, visit walledtech.com. You can follow us on Twitter or find us on Facebook. Just search for Wall EdTech. If you have questions, comments, or things you want us to talk about, visit Wall EdTech and send us an email, tweet, or message us on Facebook. We look forward to hearing from you.